You would think that I was trying just to get all kinds of subscriptions and thumbs up, likes, and comments when I go and do things like talk about Jimmy Dore. That's what I'm doing this morning. Not for that reason. It's just his name keeps popping up. I mean, for quite some time, we've seen a divided online left when it comes to Jimmy Dore. His name is quite popular in a positive and negative way. He's a stand-up comedian. He was a part of TYT for many years, and in my opinion, really defined TYT. And I just always associate TYT with Jimmy Dore. Um, he went independent and and now he has his own show, very popular. I mean, the Jimmy Dore show was part of the Young Turks, but it went independent. Um, he's I would say he's mostly correct, occasionally wrong, and a perpetual asshole. I mean, I don't know the man personally. I just That's just my take on him. Um, when he's correct, and when he's wrong. And I will say that about any online leftist personality. I mean, I admit that he is one of my major online leftists that I do listen to. And but lately he's done some things that cause a little bit of alarm with me, and I'll get to that point momentarily. As I said, Jimmy Dore earned quite a reputation as an independent thinker. Uh, I still believe he's a genuine leftist at heart. Um, I admire his opposition to more political correctness and being done in a way which is still leftist. I also value the fact that he is a free speech absolutist, and I love how he punches at corporate Democrats. But he, you know, s- some things do, however, kind of bother me. Forced to vote. I know we talk a lot about forced to vote lately. We're still talking about it. I thought it was positive. Thought it was an idea that it should have been done. And the only reason I'm talking about it is because everybody else is talking about it. But that ship has sailed, and there's really nothing you can do about it except find another way to try to fight for Medicare for all. Uh, I don't have a problem with Jimmy Dore criticizing Bernie Sanders or AOC or other members of the squads or various members of the left over this, that, or the other, because we're all human at the end of the day, and we're all complex human beings, and we don't all think alike, and we have genuine differences on how to achieve, well, I believe, where everybody is pretty much in an agreement. And I think that Jimmy Dore is pretty much in agreement with Bernie Sanders and AOC and the squad and even people in that his rivals within the online left like Sam Cedar, people like that. Uh, They're all for the same thing pretty much, but they have differences on how to get there. I mentioned this the other day. And as I said, Sam Cedar wants to work. People like Sam Cedar wants to work within the system. Jimmy Dore wants to be kind of agitating from the outside, and I say a little bit of both. I think that there are times you work within the system. There are times you agitate from outside, and you got to do it in a way that's actually going to be plausible and working. Now, he chose Tulsi Gabbard over Bernie Sanders in 2020, and prior to, and I'm not a politically correct person. I don't believe in cancel culture, but I was a little alarmed when Tulsi Gabbard co-sponsored legislation that would discriminate against the transgender community. I maybe she doesn't think it's discriminating against the transgender community, and I like to give her the benefit of the doubt in that regard. But I was kind of taken aback. Because I mean, she is in my opinion, she's still otherwise a very good person, a little weird, and she does weird things, but I do think she's a genuine progressive that's been unfortunately smeared. And I was kind of annoyed that a lot of leftists joined in with the corporate Democrats to smear her, especially when it's people like Hillary Clinton. And I'm sorry, you're going to ask me to choose between Hillary Clinton and Tulsi Gabbard. I will embrace Tulsi Gabbard any day, even now, because you know Hillary Clinton. She decided that she was all of a sudden, woke on the on same sex marriage. She's a grifter, so So I would call it a draw on that question between Hillary Clinton, Tulsi Gabbard, and I'm not trying to talk about them all the way through this commentary. But what I'm saying is Jimmy Dore chose Tulsi Gabbard over Bernie Sanders. Granted, I do think she was still the second best candidate in the 2020 primaries. Something I try not to talk about anymore because I get upset when I think about it because I had my presidential candidate Bernie Sanders stolen from me twice. Well, you know, but here's where I'm a little upset with Jimmy Dore, the Boogaloo Boys. I'm not upset that he interviewed people, individual from the Boogaloo Boys. I'm upset by the softball questions toward him, acting like they're kind of benign and not all that bad. Now, I mean, I don't know that much about the Boogaloo Boys. I really don't. I just sort of look at them as kind of like another kind of Proud Boys. And maybe there's a lot of nuances about them, but I wouldn't go around promoting the Boogaloo Boys. I find them troubling enough for what I know about them. So I mean, yeah, I saw the interview, and it was interesting. But as I said, I'm not particularly sure if I want to sit there and embrace the Boogaloo Boys. Now, um, as for criticizing Bernie Sanders and AOC, unproductive. I mean, I'm not talking about criticizing them, but overly criticizing them, acting like they're the enemy. And I mean, I know I can understand being frustrated, perhaps, but acting like they're the enemy when they're not, that's ridiculous. But the Boogaloo Boys, that was really, I mean, to even entertain the notion of having an alliance with them, um, I don't know what the hell he's thinking by doing this, unless he wants to let these people know that they don't have to be this way, and hopefully they will join in the left under the terms of the left, not them joining, teaming up with the left on their terms. See, I mean, I'm about redemption. I'm all about forgiveness. Now, when is it appropriate when the left and the right can work together? And I do think there are instances where it can be appropriate, especially in today's political discourse. It's it's not as simple as it used to be. Democrat, Republican, blue team, red team. I mean, it's not that simplistic anymore. Now, he's had Ron Paul on the show, and I personally respect Ron Paul. I like Ron Paul. I don't like his economics, and I'm sure if Ron Paul knew me, he'll think I was a douchebag for being a socialist. But that's all fine and dandy. I don't have a problem with Ron Paul. Ron Paul supports a lot of good things on his term that overlaps with the left. He's anti-war. He's against the drug war. That's really squelching down on our civil liberties in this country. He's against the surveillance state. He's against the shenanigans of the military industrial complex, and just recently he turned against capital punishment. I consider Ron Paul an ally as far as these issues are concerned. Now, when it comes to extreme free market positions of the libertarian mindset, we part ways, definitely for sure. Now, being on Tucker Carlson, that might be a little more controversial for those of us on the left. As I personally don't have a problem with Jimmy Dore being on Tucker Carlson. I mean, Bernie Sanders has been on Tucker Carlson. Tulsi Gabbard's been on Tucker Carlson. Cornel West has been on Tucker Carlson. So I mean, I don't. And Jimmy Dore's been on Tucker Carlson, and you know, um, and he might have had his agenda having Jimmy Dore up there. He certainly goes out of his way to let him state his case. But it's usually on issues where Tucker Carlson, as a paleoconservative, will agree with the left, such as the opposition to these regime change wars, um, you know, issues dealing with Julian Assange, where there are some issues where those who are paleoconservative will kind of see eye to eye with the left. And I didn't even have a problem with the strategy of basically being on just before Sean Hannity comes on the air, because apparently the thinking of Tucker Carlson, I guess Jimmy Dore thinking doing this before Sean Hannity comes on. Apparently, Donald Trump watches Sean Hannity every night on TV. So if he's listening to the last 10, 15 minutes of Tucker Carlson about making a case against for withdrawing troops from Afghanistan, or saying things like, "Well, the president gives Americans health care, they will put that president on Mount Rushmore," or what have you, or UBI, or what have you, that hopefully trying to have it so where maybe Donald Trump, when he was president, um, where he's a little bit on the independent thinking side, might do something positive. I don't think that I view would have been talking definitely to a brick wall had George W. Bush been president. Would have freed Julian Assange? Absolutely not. There was always a greater chance that Donald Trump would have done it than someone like George W. Bush, or pull withdrawing troops from Afghanistan and things like that. But what I'm saying is that Jimmy Dore's done this with a strategy, and I don't care that he done this with Tucker Carlson. It doesn't bother me one bit. In fact, I'll one up. I'd rather him hobnob with Tucker Carlson than to hobnob with Sean Hannity or Mark Levin, who are like 100 times worse, in my opinion, than Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson's wrong on a lot of shit, and I got some issues with Tucker Carlson. But Sean Hannity is much worse. Mark Levin is much worse, and I don't see the progressives criticizing them as much. But we're talking about left versus right, when it's appropriate, when it's not. Donna Brazil, she worked for the Al Gore campaign 2000. She worked in the Hillary Clinton for president campaign 2016. And and she was kind of involved with all that shenanigans that was going on, and she was kind of coming out because she had to save face. Well, let me tell you about her. Years ago, she was criticizing Ralph Nader running for president and saying that cost George W. Bush to win the election, which is ironic because I'm pretty sure she's probably buddy buddy with George W. Bush these days, or the idea of being buddy buddy, considering how Trump derangement syndrome kind of engulfed the fake left and the real left. But she was criticizing Ralph Nader for going on a book signing tour with Pat Buchanan. Again, no fan of Pat Buchanan, But you're going to criticize Ralph Nader for going on a book signing tour with Pat Buchanan, but not criticize her boss, Bill and Hillary Clinton, when they went and Reaganized the Democratic Party through the Democratic Leadership Council, using that vessel to kind of shift the party away from the FDR New Deal liberalism and incorporating that third way, where it was a combination of redundant social liberalism and soft Reaganomics to become the American version of what Tony Blair did to the Labor Party in the 19th with his New Labor Project called the Third Way. That's like a left-right alliance because Tony Blair was soft pedaling the Thatcher consensus. Bill Clinton was soft pedaling the Reagan consensus. Unfortunately, Obama continued where Bill Clinton left off, and Joe Biden looks like he's going to continue where Barack Obama left off. And we're still with a Democratic Party that's still going on with the Reagan consensus. So that's an example where left and right working together becomes unproductive. Now there's a good left and right. You're not familiar with Dennis Kucinich, but he used to be a congressman from the Cleveland area. He and Ron Paul worked on legislation together. Over the years in the Senate, Bernie Sanders and Mike Lee of Utah, somebody I don't particularly care for, but they work together to try to put a stop to arms sales in Saudi Arabia, where our military is being sold, our military hardware is being sold to Saudi Arabia to contribute to a genocide that's going on in Yemen right now. So the United States right now is actually indirectly committing a genocide with Yemen. And remember, the United States being allies with Saudi Arabia causes a lot of terrorism against the West, way more than Iran. And yet, there is a mindset, a mantra of wanting to go to war with Iran all the time, which is absolutely ridiculous. The dangers of too much left right alliance. Well, let's go beyond the Boogaloo Boys and go into the real thing. I mean, because again, you can probably have a debate whether the Boogaloo Boys are actual neo Nazis wanting to jumpstart the Turner Diaries or not. You can, I don't know that much about them, but there's just enough, right now. I mean, the fact that they are allied or do security for Black Lives Matter and want to form an alliance with Antifa and Black Lives Matter leaves a little bit of haziness in my mind. But I am inclined to find Boogaloo Boys more negative than anything else. And so again, I think Jimmy Dore was kind of not wrong for having them on the show and asking questions, but going overboard with the softball questions. Now, the danger of the left and right alliance is something like this. Matthew Heimbach, who is a kind of a well-known figure on the alt-right, decided with the Bernie Sanders campaign that he was going to try to reach out to to any Bernie bro that has a potential to be racist by trying to win them over with economic populism. This is where the Traditionalist Workers' Party came into being. And this Traditionalist Workers' Party sort of kind of proposed what looks like socialistic solutions to the economy. But unfortunately, a whole lot of nasty white nationalism, racism, anti Semitism, the whole yard, 9 yards. And so, you know, I don't want to work with someone like a Matthew Heimbach. I mean, Matthew Heimbach, who would actually get rid of whole sections of the American population if he ever had any influence and power. Um, well, Kyle Kalinske mentioned this about a year or so ago. He and Nico House were talking about Tulsi Gabbard running for president, and the subject of Richard Spencer came along, and Paul Kalinske said, "Well, you know, there are aspects of his foreign policy where he thinks that someone like a Richard Spencer would find themselves in agreement with. It doesn't mean that he wants to go and work with someone like Richard Spencer. Just because the stop clock gets the right time twice a day doesn't mean you're going to go and work with such persons enthusiastically. Now, let's go to the normal right, or the center right. Now, I have never particularly had any endearing love for Sarah Palin. Recently, she called for Julian Assange to be pardoned. Now, while I still don't particularly care for her, I thought a little bit better of her. And I can do that because, so far as I know, I don't think Sarah Palin is a white nationalist or a racist. I mean, she has some very kooky religious right sort of ideology about her that's very unsettling. But she's like any other human being. All human beings are complex. There's a lot of nuances, and she saw that perhaps Julian Assange was treated unfairly, and she believes he should be, pardoned and a free man. And for Sarah Palin, as I said, I don't like her, but on that one, I, you know, she gets my admiration on that one. Now, the thing about it is that, speaking of Sarah Palin and speaking of Jimmy Dore, I had no idea that Jimmy Dore and Sam Cedar was knowledgeable to her. But apparently she's familiar with Jimmy Dore and Sam Cedar. And it was a video that was taken down a few days ago. I wish that Tim Black didn't take down that video. I thought that video, I thought that video was really humorous. Apparently, he got a footage of Sarah Palin, up in Alaska. Sarah Palin, we're in Alaska. And she was sitting there talking about Sam Cedar and Jimmy Dore having their disagreements. And she was like, Sam, Jim? Yeah, and she thought that Brianna Joy Gray, when they were talking about Brianna interviewing Sam Cedar, she thought the name Bree was not the person, Brianna Joy Gray. She thought Bree was the cheese Bree. So she thought that Sam Cedar and Jimmy Dore had a disagreement over whether they like Brie or not, the cheese. she she thought that Brianna Joy Gray was the cheese Brie. She had no idea that when the discussion of Brie came along, it was of an actual person. That's Brianna Joy Gray, who was the press secretary for Bernie Sanders. She hosts a great program called Bad Faith. If you ever get a chance, check it out. But the thing about it is, I mean, that was humorous, and I mean, Tim Black's response was golden. I mean, he's like, paraphrasing him. I was like, I could have gone the rest of my life without hearing that goofy Sarah Palin. It took me aback too. I was just like, wow. But anyway, in conclusion, I wanted to say that while Jimmy Dore is popular, um, just to say that some conservatives seem to have attraction or admiration for him, and that can be a good thing if if the conservatives who are listening to Jimmy Dore become progressive. In other words, you know, on Jimmy Dore's term, if you want, instead of on the MAGA's term, that could be productive. But Michael Figueredo for the Humanist Report was worried that Jimmy Dore could go down that pipeline that Dave Rubin went through, and I kind of don't think so because Dave Rubin and Jimmy Dore are two different people. Um, in spite of being gay, I mean, Dave Rubin pretty much a movement conservative neocon. And so, yeah, if there is another situation where the United States involved with a regime change war, you can expect him to probably be echoing the same line as someone like Ben Shapiro or Mark Levin or Dennis Prager. I just don't see Jimmy Dore going on PragerU, saying I used to be a leftist, because that I just don't think that Jimmy Dore would get rid of that basic ideology that he still adhered to. Whereas Dave Rubin just tossed it away almost overnight. So that's just my observation about this whole matter. So anyway, I talked enough. So if you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you didn't agree with what I have to say, or didn't see eye to eye, but that's okay. Comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you, to urge you to create your platform, especially if you're passionate about something, whatever you're passionate about, because and you need to utilize it. Because we're the muckrakers of our time. Hit that notification bell, subscribe, and until next time, I am American social democracy, peace, and Bernie Sanders for president in the year 2024.